because of the people that are here all the time. And one of the big reasons why we love this church is this gentleman standing right next to me. This is Pastor Andrea Stein, and he is one of the big reasons why we love this church so much. So help me welcome him tonight.
Just know that we are excited beyond what I can say in words that you've come out here tonight, and we are just thrilled that you have made this trip, and I can tell you this is the best place to be. I know we have many guests and visitors here, and I know many of our guests and visitors come from their own churches, and I don't mean this in any disrespect to any other church, but I tell you, this is the best place in the state of Nebraska. This is the best place in the state of Nebraska. And you're coming to A is the best church because the Spirit of God is moving. Now I know this applies to every other church, but I know this too, that this church is made up of people who genuinely care and love you and care and want to pray for you, want to care and reach out to you and be a blessing in your life. And it is just a thrill to be part of St. John's. And I want to mention this, once you leave here tonight, come back. St. John's is a great place. Now, Stacy has said these kind words about me. Stacy is a great blessing to this church because Stacy does not have one gift. And that is the gift to say no. So whenever there is something we need to get done, we say, Stacy, we need you. And Stacy's answer is always?
Yes.
There we go. And we are so thrilled and thankful. Stacy is in charge of our evangelism outreach, and she is doing a marvelous job. Stacy, thank you very much for your presence and ministry.
So we're again so excited that you guys are here tonight, and I have some really fantastic news. So take your program from this evening and open it up, and you'll find in here this little page. This, my friends, is called a raffle ticket. Okay? So when we pass around the baskets later on this evening, make sure that you fill this out. It talks about the different ministries that we have going on here at St. John's and all the ways for you to be involved and become a part of our great congregation. But at the bottom is your contact information. So fill this out. We'll have you pass it around a little bit later in the baskets when they come around, because we are raffling off a brand new Kindle. So one lucky person is walking away tonight with a brand new Kindle. Is that awesome or what? So make sure you fill that information out and get it to us. Also, we do have some great things going on at St. John's. And one of the things that I'm passionate about that I get to do is I get to lead a women's Bible study. And it's called Grow, God Renewing Outstanding Women. And right now we're focusing on Made to Crave, creating God and not food in your life. And it's so much fun to see these women come together and to learn about each other and to learn about the Holy Spirit for that. And I really, really enjoy it. Pastor, do you want to talk about some other things?
Yes, we have great ministries that are really a blessing for people in all stages of life. We have a vibrant and great divorce care ministry going. That is an experience that leaves deep scars on the heart and souls of individuals and families. And we feel that God has called us to be a blessing to people who have experienced this. And our divorce care ministry is vibrant, it is strong, it is going well. And it's just a wonderful thing to see how the Spirit of God is using this ministry to make a difference in the lives of people. Now I know Chris, Chris Piper. Let us welcome Chris Piper. Chris is John's son. Chris wants to tell us a little bit about some of the books he is holding in his hand, and he will tell us what they're all about.
Johnny on the spot. Good job. Thank you. Thank you very much. How's everyone doing tonight? Welcome to another typical Sunday night at St. John's Lutheran Church. We're glad to be here. We've received a very warm welcome, and I'd like to add the pastor's welcome to you. If Do you hold those? Thank you very much. Wow. She really can't say no. If you are looking for a church and you're in this area, this is a great church. There's some wonderful people here, and the Spirit of God really is moving. And they are doing some wonderful ministry in the community. We are going to have a book signing after we're done tonight, and it does take a little bit of time at the table if I explain a little bit about the books before you get back to the fellowship area. So I'll just start with these two on the top. These are actually two new books. One is called Christmas Miracles, and one is called The Spirit of Christmas. And Dad contributed stories to both of these books. Some great stories about how to remember the reason for the season in both of these books. And since we don't have a whole lot of time left until Christmas, which reminds me I need to buy a few things, and I don't really want to carry these back to Texas with me, so I'm just going to sell these for like half price tonight. So as long as they last, I'll have a couple of those Christmas books. Let me grab 90 minutes for you. Okay. How many people have read this book? Okay. So this is what Dad's going to talk about tonight. So for those of you who've read it, if you want to go to the back and eat some more cookies, you can do that. This is the story he's going to share. But this talks about his accident, his experience in heaven, and his recovery. Just a very powerful book. And there's a couple of baby pictures of me in here. So if you're interested, if you haven't seen baby pictures, me and my twin brother. I'm better looking than he is, but anyway, this is a great book and a very encouraging book for those of you who haven't read it. A lot of people did want to share their stories with us about what God was doing in their life, and Dad's put 9 of those stories into a devotional called Daily Devotions, inspired by 90 Minutes in Heaven. We talked about having some questions answered at the book signing table tonight, and our most frequently asked questions about animals and having people want to know if Fido or Fluffy or Spot's going to be there. And there's actually a chapter about animals in this book, in addition to some other great stories that I will share with you tonight. So Daily Devotions. The third book is called Heaven's Real Lessons on Earthly Joy. As I said this morning, we travel all over the world. We'll be on the road about 200 days this year. This is actually our last trip of 2011. We meet a lot of people who say they're followers of Christ, and some of them aren't having very meaningful lives. And most of the time it's because it's something that almost happened. They lost a loved one, or going through an illness or some other sort of tragedy. And this book really talks about how to take difficult circumstances that all of us go through and use those to bless other people. Heaven's Real Lessons on Earthly Joy. You're doing such a great job. We can just take over. We've got like a trip to Hawaii next year. Hawaii always gets This is the newest book. It just came out this year. It's called Getting to Heaven, Departing Instructions for Your Life. Now, this is my favorite before that Dad has written. This is actually the only one I've read. Just kidding. But it's a scriptural study of the last words of Christ found in the Gospel of John. And some wonderful words and wisdom about how to live meaningfully until we are called home. In addition to that, we have some DVDs and some CDs of Dad's testimony, if you want to share that. I always like to mention very briefly, Dad is not a paid employee of Don Piper Ministries. We do buy him a meal on occasion, but the books that are sold at these events, the love offerings that are taken up, they do go to a nonprofit organization supported by Don Piper Ministries. And we do everything from homeless ministries, drug rehabilitation, cancer, handicapped children and adults. There are some bookmarks on the back table, so when you go back there to buy a book, be sure to pick up a bookmark and look up some of the ministries that we support. And if you're interested in communicating with us further, our website is on there in addition to our email address and our phone number. Again, thanks for having us. We hope you enjoy the evening, and I'll turn it back over to you, Pastor. Thank you.
Excited to welcome Don Piper, New York Times best-selling author, to St. John's in Bennington. Thank you, Don.
Thanks, Sean. So how are you tonight?
I think I have the song.
We are having some technical difficulties tonight. Have we resolved anything in the other building? We have, good. Well, I want to say hello to you. I already went over and said hello to them. They didn't make it in here, and I wanted to tell them how attractive they were. Because they are. We're delighted you're all here. I mean, what does it say about a church that would do something like this on a Sunday night before Christmas? That's the kind of church I want to be a part of. We're just going to open up their doors and, if necessary, put some people in another room and put a closed circuit TV in it. That's the church that wants to go somewhere and do something. So I'm happy to be here. Honored to be here, really. And thank you for letting us come. We're very honored that you asked to come. As Chris said, this is kind of our last time this year to kind of share the testimony. About 200 times a year or so. A couple years ago, 300 times. And we travel quite a bit. And as we get closer to the end of the year, we're reminded about how good God is and how awesome it is to minister in His name. And it's very humbling, quite honestly. I wrote this book so I would never have to talk about it. That has not gone well. My daughter called me about, it's been about 4 or 5 months ago. She called me and she was very excited. She's kind of an excitable person. I'm Nicole, and she called. She says, "Dad, you're going to believe what happened." I said, "What happened?" She said, "You were on Jeopardy tonight." I said, my memory's not very good, but I don't remember being on Jeopardy. I think I remember that. And besides that, they wouldn't have me because I don't know the answers to all the questions, so they wouldn't have me. She said, "You need to see it." So I'm looking on the dial there in Houston to see if Jeopardy's coming back on again, and of course it was, at 11:30 that night. So I'm not watching Jeopardy and thinking, what in the world am I doing this for? Then about halfway through Jeopardy, I'm getting ready to turn it off, and Alex Trebek says, next category is famous authors. And the guy said, "I'll take famous authors for $600. And on the big blue screen with the white letters, it said, "Don Piper spent 90 minutes in this place." And the guy pushed the button and said, "What is heaven?" and won $600. So my life is a question on Jeopardy. How did this happen? Well, it's very humbling and really, frankly, overwhelming to have people know so much about you, but I don't know much about you. I never really planned to tell this story. I wanted to put this thing behind me. And as you might have noticed in life, if you've been around a while, sometimes God's put something in front of you that you'd rather get past. And so it seems that struck some chords beyond anything I ever imagined. And so I'm going to kind of share the testimony with you tonight. And I want to tell you right up front the reason we're doing this. We're taking reservations in heaven tonight. See, a church like this would do something like this because they love you here and they want to love you there. And I have to confess that is our reason for being here. We're trying to get as many people in as we can while we can. And I guess you notice we're running out of time. I found this out the hard way, how real heaven is, and how much we need to be prepared to go there. I got killed on my way to church. Well, it's been a few years ago now, a little over 20 actually. And in that 20 years, a lot of things have happened that are quite remarkable. So here's what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about answered prayer, because I believe in it. We're going to talk about miracles, because I think God's doing some of His best stuff today. We're going to talk about how to overcome tragedy and loss. And some of you may really want to hear about that because you're in the middle of it. And we're going to talk about the reality of heaven. Heaven is more real than this. And you can go there. Here we are on the threshold of Christmas, and I hope you have the most merriest Christmas that you've ever had. Really, I hope it's a great Christmas for you. But when I think about Christmas, I also also think about the death of Jesus, not just the birth, but the death, because the death set into motion something that has changed literally the world. Right before Jesus died, he was with his followers. He'd been with them about 3.5 years, and they're together, really, for one of the final times here on earth before he died. And they were having a dinner. You know, we have lots of dinners this time of year, don't we? It's just like sometimes it's one get-together after another, one party after another. And they were having dinner, and this actually was a seasonal party. They had it every year, and they had it for centuries, really. We call it Passover. They were having it, and they were having it in a little room upstairs there in Jerusalem. Things were not going very well in Jerusalem at that time for them. A lot of people were saying a lot of bad things about Jesus. And his followers were with him in that upper room, and they were having this dinner, a commemorative dinner. They would pass the elements of the dinner around, and there they were. And they were frightened. You say frightened at dinner? Well, they were frightened because they were in danger. Certainly Jesus was in danger, and he knew what was going to happen to him. But they were in danger. We're setting loose power. I don't want to lose it over there. I can make you guys hear me, but I can't talk that much. Hello, Mike. Testing, Mike. This is a test of the emergency broadcast. I'm looking at a red light, and I don't think it's supposed to be red. You got a handheld over there somewhere, or do you take it back? Please stand by. This thing was going to order the pocket full of mics in it. Yeah, here it is. All right, I feel like a network news anchor now. They were in the room together, and things are not going well. Jesus is in danger. They're making threats against him. And since they were followers of him, they had literally lived together, traveled together for 3.5 years. That meant something happened to him, Jesus, that might happen to them. So they're afraid, and they have reason to be afraid. So they're at this table, it's a low table. I love the Da Vinci painting, but it's not at all representative. Why would they have a dinner upstairs facing all in the same direction? It wouldn't happen that way. They would be around the table. Okay? And they were around the table, and they were reclining on cushions. Okay? Now I know this stuff going on. Not sure what that is. All right, the devil must not want us to do this. So they're around the table, and they're having this dinner. This. Okay, all right. And Jesus looks into their faces, kind of like I'm looking into yours. And he can see that they're frightened. They're troubled. They're not doing well. Some of you aren't. You know who you are. Actually, that's why you came to church tonight. You're looking for answers. When you come to the right place. I don't know if you know this or not, but they have church here every week. And, you know, you need to come back when I'm not here. You'll find out just how meaningful it is. Well, he's looking into the faces and he sees their trouble, and so he probably stands up from the table and he says this to them, and he's saying it to us. Just published a new book called Getting to Heaven, the Party Instructions. And these words are in that book. They're department instructions for how to live a meaningful life until Jesus calls us home, because none of us are going to get out of this alive. We need to know how to live now. Let not your hearts be troubled, he said. Do you believe in God? Then believe in me also, he said. In my Father's house are many mansions, a room. If it were not so, I would have told you. And if I go to prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself. Where I am, you will be also. And you know where I'm going. And you know how to get there. After all, I told them repeatedly that he was going to meet them, but they weren't paying attention. Thomas, you know, Thomas. He's so much like us, and we're so much like him. And we call him a doubter, but really I think he's more of a questioner. He just had questions. And he said, Jesus, we don't know where you're going, and we don't know how to get there. In other words, where is heaven? You're leaving this, you're going to heaven. Where is it? How do I get to heaven? Jesus responded to these words. I am the way. I am the truth. I am the life. No man comes to the Father except through me. Well, I found that out. I found that it's true on my way to church on a cold and rainy January morning just a few years ago. I left the pastor's conference in East Texas, and I got in my car. I drove out to the gates of the conference center on a lake north of Houston, and I've got about 130 miles to go. There's been a lot of pastors at the conference. A lot of them had a lot further to go than I did. I just, I was headed home that morning. It was kind of a really brutal day. It was not very nice. But I'm not worried about that. I'm supposed to teach a Bible study that night at church. So I went up to the conference center and I made a fateful decision. I decided to go home a different way than I had come to the conference. And I've been there many times before. But I looked at the map and it looked like it was supposed to go home this way as it was that way. The road went past the front of the conference center and I go one way or the other. Every previous time I left, that day I decided to go right out of curiosity. Maybe you're here tonight out of curiosity. If you heard they had a dead guy at the church and you want to go see it. I turned to the right. If you go that way, you have to cross the lake. Cross a lake. Long, elevated highway going across the lake, water on both sides. And so I found myself on this long, elevated highway. Remember, this is new territory. I've not gone this way before. So I'm driving across this long, elevated road, and I see an old bridge in the distance. And I mean, it's old. It was built by WPA. That's old. A bridge. And I'm looking at the bridge, a very narrow metal superstructure over the top of the bridge. And I'm going on the bridge, and I'm thinking, why would they build a bridge out here like that? Well, it had been over a river before that river was dammed up to make a lake, so the bridge remained. And also, it's a memorial bridge. It was built to honor veterans of World War I. Well, go ahead on this one too. All right. I may have to shout before this is over with. Maybe the one way. How about a handheld? Can we do that? Okay. All right. Please stand by. I knew my battery was going to go dead one of these days. You know the feeling, don't you? Yeah. All right. Okay. No bar so good. Appreciate you, brother, what you do. Thank you very much. Well, I'm driving across this bridge. It's a memorial bridge. It's built on veterans of World War I. And I went one end of the bridge on my way to church to teach the Bible, and I went on the other end of the ambulance, and I decided to go with it. I was on this bridge about 3 months ago, taking a television show with a guy named Bob Woodruff. Bob Woodruff was the anchor for ABC News, and he had a terrible thing happen to him in Iraq. Thank God, everyone's home for Iraq. But he was there in a tank, and an IED blew up beside him, took off half his face and a good portion of his brain. And Bob wanted to find out about life after death. He wanted to do a story on that. And so Nightline sent him to Houston, and we went out on that bridge where this happened and stood in the exact same spot where my life was changed forever. Well, I was at that point that morning, and coming from the opposite direction was an 18-wheeler, a tractor-trailer truck. He was driving much faster than the law allowed. hill down the steep embankment onto the opposite end of that bridge. I was only about 30, 40 feet from the end of the bridge. He said a slow-moving car pulled out in front of him, and he had to make a decision. Mine was to go that way. His was, I'm going to hit this car. There's no way I can stop this truck going downhill this fast. Too short a distance. Or I can go around that car in my lane into the oncoming traffic and hope no one's coming. The superstructure of the bridge blocked his view. So he's got to make a decision. He's got to make it fast. He decides to go around the car in his lane, and what he did, he hit me head on. I was driving a very small car. The 9 wheels of the truck rolled over the top of my car, crushed it, shoved up against the railing of that bridge. You can still see the scars on the side of the bridge to this day. He went off the back, went back over to his lane, hit the car he was trying to miss, and then hit another car before he finally got off the truck at all. There's now a 4-vehicle pileup on the Trinity River Bridge. Horrible accident. Horrific. Well, it's a very isolated area. It took a long time for police and ambulances to arrive. Eventually they did, and they started working the accident. These people are heroes. They do the best they can to save lives. And they started working on all the victims. The truck driver, the drivers of the other 2 cars, and myself. What they discovered was actually good news. The driver of the truck was not hurt. Shaken up, not hurt. The drivers of the other 2 cars, not hurt. So they were all treated and released. So there's now 4 paramedics on the bridge, but there's only 1 victim. That's me. It's obvious I'm not in good shape at all. And so they began to feverishly, desperately work on me in spite of their best efforts. They were unsuccessful. I was pronounced dead on the scene. Which I think brings up an interesting question. If I was dead on the scene, what am I doing in Nebraska? You're giggling a little bit, but let me ask you the same question. What are you doing? I don't think you're understanding that right. My question really is, what are you doing here? What are you doing here that will last? What do you have to show for your life up to this point? Put a bookmark in that, we'll come back to it. The body was covered up so nobody would have to see it. It was a gruesome sight for this car. Really horrible, hideous, blood everywhere. And now they're waiting for a medical examiner, a coroner, to come to the scene of the accident so paperwork can be released and investigation can be done and the body can be taken away. And they're having trouble locating the coroner that morning. So they can't move me. Traffic now is starting to back up. In the direction the truck came from, and certainly in the direction that I came from. Among the people who are backed up in the traffic behind me are a lot of pastors who are trying to get back to their churches to do Wednesday night services just like I was. But they're not going anywhere now. One of those pastors, Leeds, left his car. He and his wife walked up to the bridge, saw the accident, saw the carnage, and he walked up to the policeman in charge and said, "Officer, I see there's been an awful wreck here. I'm a pastor. I'm on my way to Houston. And is there anyone in here I can pray for? Any victims? I'd be glad to pray for them." "No," said the policeman, "there's no one to pray for. Everyone else is okay. The man in the red car there is dead. He didn't make it." And when the policeman said that, God spoke to the preacher, which I think is a good thing. And I want to be a pastor that God speaks to. And I think God's doing a lot more speaking than we are listening. But that day, God was speaking, and this particular fellow was listening. Here's what God said: "Pray for the man in the red car." Well, now he never even remotely considered praying for someone already dead, but he knew God was telling him to do so, so he was obedient. Theology was not an issue. He said to the policeman, I need to pray for the man in the red car." The policeman said, "Did you hear what I said? He didn't make it. We covered up the body. Trust me, you don't want to see it." "Oh, officer, I have to pray for him. God's told me to pray for him." "Suit yourself?" "No, I don't want to just pray over here. I want to go over there. I want to put my hand on the body and I want to pray for him because God's told me I need to pray for him." "No, sir, you cannot go over there. You can see the condition of the car, the twisted metal, broken glass. You could be injured. You'd be another victim. So you have to pray over here." "No, sir, I have to pray over there." A discussion ensued, and finally the policeman said, We cover him up for a reason, not just because it's raining and the windows are all gone. We cover him up so nobody would have to look at it. It's a gruesome sight. You don't understand, officer, said the preacher. I was in the medical profession before I was in the ministry. What is under that tarp will not bother me. I've got to get under there with the body and pray for him. I got to put my hand up. All right, the medical examiner's not here, so as soon as he gets here, you'll have to leave. That's all I'm asking, said the preacher. So he goes over to the car. He lifts up the tarp. Now he has to come in from the back, because the front and the side are crushed in the car. And he lifts up the tarp and he begins to examine me. And during his investigation, he discovers the only thing I didn't break in the accident was my right arm. It is the only thing I did not break in the accident that morning. Chris says the reason I didn't break my right arm is so I could sign books, but I don't think it's You've already met me, you know. So he reaches between the seats, the preacher does, and he puts his hand on my right shoulder, and he begins to pray over my dead body under the tarp in the dark with me. He doesn't know how to do it. He doesn't understand why he's doing it, but he's being obedient. He's not the only one praying at that time, because they searched me, of course, to try to find who I was. When they found my identity, they called my home. Nobody was at home that morning. My wife retired the year before last, after 34 years as a classroom teacher. She was at school that morning. She decided at the last minute not to come with me on this trip. She felt it was too close to the end of the semester to miss school. So she decided Monday or Sunday night not to come with me on Monday morning. She would have been in the other seat that day. She was at school, and incidentally, she is the hero of the story, I'm not. I mean, I survived the accident. My wife overcame the accident. She's the one that took care of 3 children, taught school every day, ran papers at night, sat on a cot beside me in the hospital, and started the process all over again. She's the one who bounced the checkbook and did it, and she's the hero. She was at school. Of course, our children were in school in those days, and so they found my business card in my wallet, South Park Church in Alabama. So they decided to call the church to try to get some information on me. Of course, the church answered the telephone, and they were shocked, stunned to hear that I had been in an accident. They were not told that I was dead, because my family does not know yet. They had not been notified. So they asked the church if the church could go get my family, bring them, because they wanted to send some authorities there to kind of tell them that I had died. So the church doesn't know that I'm dead. And so they were making arrangements to go get my family, but immediately they launched into prayer. They just started praying passionately, desperately, fervently. I think that's one of the best things about this accident, is a lot of people who hadn't prayed in a long time after they were contacted that morning. They started praying for them. People all over the world started praying for them, because it just was like wildfire. Churches called other churches, people called other people, it just began to spread it in foreign countries and coast to coast. Right here in Nebraska, people were lifting up my name to the throne of God. I've never met them, although over 20 years later, I'm still meeting some of the people who prayed for me that morning for the first time. That 4 last year. And they're still praying because they know the words. They're lifting up their petitions to the throne of God on my behalf. The pastor who's been in a terrible wreck on his way to church. One man is praying over my dead body. He's in the wreckage of my car, all over my right shoulder. All these prayers are being lifted up to God's throne. And I don't know they're praying down here, because I'm at God's throne. I'm having the best time. If I'd known they were praying here, I would have told them to stop. Because if you've been there and you don't want to be here, you've been Nebraska. So they're all praying on my behalf, and God is listening. He always does. So He's listening to the prayers of them. And now an hour and a half has passed. The accident happened just before lunch, 10:45 a.m. that morning on that bridge. I was killed by an oncoming truck. It's now 1:15 in the afternoon. They're praying all over the world. The car wrecker, the pastors on the wreckage of my car holding on my shoulder. He's begun to alternate verbal prayers with musical prayers. You know what musical prayers are? Hymns. We sing them all the time. He's singing this old hymn. It's been around 150 years. He's singing this hymn over my body, holding on my right shoulder. What a friend we have in Jesus. It's a wonderful song. He's got his hand on my shoulder. What a friend we have. He's singing the song. Suddenly, without any warning, there under the tarp, 90 minutes after the truck killed me, I started singing the song with him. But he got out of the car really fast. Wouldn't you? And he might not have done this. He went over to the policeman and he said, "Officer, the dead man's singing." I was. I remember singing that song, thinking, "Who is this person I'm singing the song with? Why am I singing it?" Well, he had agreed with the people to come over and check on me one more time. 3 or 4 ambulances had left. The last one was getting ready to leave. And finally, he convinced them, just kind of to humor him, to come over and check on me, because they all four pronounced me dead. They discovered I was alive. Not buried, but alive nonetheless. And so they left into action and did what they do so well, which is help people. I was eventually extracted from that car with great difficulty, because the equipment to do that was not on the scene. Remember, I'm a fatality. They had to order it from 35 miles away to ride. They finally got me out. They put me in a gurney. They took me to a series of hospitals. And a series of hospitals, because the hospitals they took me to could not possibly handle the kind of injuries that I had. Finally, I wound up at a regional hospital, 85 miles from Houston, Russell. And there they began to do everything they could to try to stabilize me. And they decided they were going to order a life airlift for me, a life-flight helicopter. And they just ordered it, and they discovered that it wouldn't work, because the weather was too bad for helicopters to take off on the land, too dangerous, put more lives in jeopardy. So at that point, they decided they were going to transport me by land to the hospital in Houston, 85 miles away. So now I'm in an ambulance, and I'm careening down I-45 on my way to Houston to a very uncertain future. It was in the back of that ambulance that this began to kind of come into focus for me. I was hurting in a way that I did not know was humanly possible. I had so many broken bones, open gaping wounds. Every time my heart would beat, it would be like hitting each one of those bones with a hammer. I looked up through my oxygen mask, and the young EMT who was taking care of me, and I said, "Sir, is there any way you could give me something for pain, please?" He said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Piper, I can't give you anything else for pain. I've given you all I can. If I give you anything else for pain, you'll probably just pass out." That's kind of what I'm shooting for. I mean, you know what I'm talking about, don't you? He said, "I know that doesn't make any sense, but the doctors in Houston have told me that they've instructed me not to let you lapse into unconsciousness, because there may be no way I can get you back again in this ambulance. I'm just following the instructions." He was. We go along a little further, and I began to hear horrifying screams in the ambulance. I mean, just horrifying screams. And I said to him one more time, "If you can't give me something for pain, could you at least make the screaming stop?" It's very disturbing to me. But this time he put his hand on my shoulder. Again, it's the only thing I didn't break. And I promise you, as God is my witness, tears begin to form in the corner of his eyes. These people see horrible things, but they don't fail to feel it. As he looked down at me, he said, "Mr. Piper, I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but besides the driver and myself, there is no one else in this ambulance. I'm afraid you are the one who screamed." I was a 38-year-old preacher on his way to church to lead a Bible study on a Wednesday night. Down in the back of the ambulance, screaming, blood-curdling screaming. I don't even know what was meaning. I don't think I've ever been more frightened in my life than I was at that moment. Because I knew then I was never going to be the same. Yeah. The accident happened at 11:45 in the morning. I arrived at Memorial Hermann Hospital in Houston at 6:15 p.m. that evening. 6.5 hours after the wreck, I got to the hospital. You know this hospital. You've heard about it a lot recently. It's the hospital where Congresswoman Gibbers has been for so long. It's a hospital you only go to if there are no other options. It's a great hospital, but being there means something. From that night forward, I'll be in a hospital bed for 13 months. I would have 34 surgical procedures to try to bring me back, assist me, help me walk into this place. So, two things immediately are very obvious to me, and here's I do believe that God answers prayer, and I think God's still in miracle business today. And the reason I know this is because I am an answered prayer. You know, in that discourse in John chapter 14 that begins with let not your hearts be troubled, because Jesus is trying to tell his followers how to live after he's gone, he also says this, if you ask it in my name, I will do it. I don't know how you get more direct than that. That's God saying, I'll answer your prayers. You say, well, wait a minute. I've asked for some stuff, and it was important stuff. I even said in Jesus' name at the end of my prayer, as far as I know, I haven't got a thing. What's going on there? Let me make some suggestions to you. Number one, the answer is no. That's the answer. You say, well, just see, we have a tendency to be humans thinking answered prayer means the one we want. I live long enough that I'm glad God answers a lot of my prayers no. Because if I got what I asked for at the time I prayed, it would have been a disaster. Now I can see that. So sometimes the answer to our prayers is no, just like your parents said no when you asked them to stay out later in your curfew. You're a parent now, you know that's the right answer. So sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes the answer is later because he's not on our schedule. We have to get on his. The Bible has a beautiful expression, and I see it repeated in the Bible. It's one of my favorite. In the fullness of time. God's always on time. It doesn't mean he's on our time. So, it just hasn't gotten there. But here's what I find. I find that in so many cases, the prayers that I lift up to the throne of God are answered in ways far beyond anything I could ever have imagined. They so exceed my expectations because I'm praying low and God is answering high. I do believe God answers prayer. I know because I am one. Well, the reason I'm saying in front of you tonight is a lot of people pray and God said, yes, I have nothing to do with my God. Nothing. They pray. And the answer was yes. My father, an authentic American hero. My father fought in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. He had the medals to show for it. I'm thinking about him tonight. During the time I was in the hospital, and it was a roller coaster ride to be sure, my parents would make a 250-mile one-way journey from their home to the hospital clinic, usually on the weekends. They were in the 60s then, but they never failed to come. During all the times they visited me, there was only one time when my dad and I were ever in the room there at the hospital together, just by ourselves. He came often, but there was always people with him. So that day we were there together. He's sitting in a chair. Of course, I'm in the hospital bed, unable to move at all. My dad, this drill sergeant of a man, this tough guy, gets up from his chair, walks over to my bedside, takes my hand, the only thing I didn't break in his, and my father leans down, and this is what he says into my ear. Son, I'll give anything to trade places with you. That's my dad. See, it didn't matter that I was 38. As far as he was concerned, I was still a little boy. And he loved me. And he sure didn't like to see me hurt. And he meant what he said. He really would take it on him. Here's a man that had shrapnel wounds. Here's a man that had malaria. He knew what it felt like. He would take it on him. When I think about him, I'm thinking about God the Father and sending his Son here to take our place here on earth. You know, my father, as the years went by, enjoyed seeing me. He would be hospitalized. He would be sick. He would be in hospice. He would be in assisted living. And I would go see him. And every time I walked in the room, his face would just light up. It's like, here's my boy. He's come by to see me. Everything was reversed, you see. And my God, my dad, he just wanted to see me. He wanted to hold my hand. He wanted to hear from me. You know, we were created for fellowship with God the Father. The reason we're here on earth, whether we acknowledge it or not, is to have a relationship with God. He created us to have a relationship with Him. He wants to hear from His children. That's what prayer is. When's the last time you prayed? To God the Father. He wants to hear from Him. We're His children. And He wants to hear from His children. If you ask it in my name, Jesus said, I will do it. What do you suppose would happen out of Nebraska? or Iowa, or wherever you're from, if the people in this room decided to pray for others who are not ready to go to heaven with the kind of passion Dick Honoriger did over my dead life. I'll fill in that one for you. Our revival will start in Nebraska. Just because of the prayers of the people in this room. Petitioning God on behalf of the people who are not ready to go to heaven. Why not Nebraska? Why not now? I promise you it starts with prayer. When's the last time you prayed for someone you love here that you want to love there and you're not sure they're going to go? I believe in prayer. I am one. I know the word. In April of this year, I stood at my father's graveside. I saw the 21 gun salute. I heard the taps play. I watched some soldiers that my dad would have loved to see gently fold that flag and take it over to my mother, his wife of 61 years, and say, a grateful nation is thankful for your sacrifice. I know what my father is. He's having the best time ever, and he knows I'm not. God wants me to go to children. When the truck went over the top of me, I had brain damage. My skull was crushed. I had blood coming out of my ears and eyes and lots of other places. I was impaled on the steering wheel, so I had massive internal injuries. Both of those are not life-threatening. Had I lived, I would have been vegetated. The dashboard collapsed on my knees when the truck went over the hood of the car. My right knee was broken right at the knee, because that's where the dashboard hit. So my leg no longer went the way it was designed. It went the opposite direction. It hit right above my left knee, and when it hit right above my left knee, about an inch, it severed my left leg like a guillotine. It just cut it in two. 4 inches of femur was ejected from the car into the lake and never got. Dick Honoriger, Bob Woodruff and I were standing there on the bridge that day, and he looked over the railing and he said, "You suppose a fish caught it?" He's pretty goofy. I said, "I don't know, Bob." The main thing was that we didn't get it back. Well, not having that bone posed catastrophic consequences, you know. I mean, they can always claim the bone, they can say that they didn't use it and they didn't have it. So I had a 4-inch gap in my leg. My leg connected only by some tissue on the bottom, lying over on the floor of the car. I put my arm up when the truck came over the top of the car. And I don't remember the accident, thankfully, but when the truck went over me and my arm was in the air, it took my arm with it into the back seat of the car. And from here forward was lying on the back seat of the car. Dick Honoriger reached over, put this part of my arm, put his hand on my shoulder. They told me I would never walk again. They told me if they were able to successfully reattach this arm, it would hang by my side for the rest of my life. And if I wanted to move it, I'd have to pick it up and move it with my other arm. I guess you noticed, after I was introduced tonight, I walked up here on the stage on my own 2 legs, and this is my arm. And the reason for that is God is still in the miracle business in the 21st century. Why should that matter to you? Because you may need one someday. That's why. Further on down in John chapter 14, Jesus says this to his followers because he knows they're going to need this. After I leave here, you are going to do greater things than I did while I was here. Isn't that a remarkable statement? I think it is. I think it's one of the most remarkable statements in the Bible. Here's Jesus talking to a bunch of guys that follow him around. And he was saying this to them, and they're the ones who saw all the stuff he did. He saw them get sight of the vine. He saw them make the lame walk. He saw them change the water into wine. Most of them were standing around, and Jesus stood outside the tomb of Lazarus and said, "Lazarus, come forth." Lazarus come dancing out of the tomb. They saw it with their own eyes. Now Jesus is saying to those guys, "You're going to do greater things than I did." I think that's a remarkable statement. But I think he's still telling us that. God, I see it all the time. I want to say this. If God could resuscitate a dead man in a red car, he could put a marriage back together again. He said that would be a miracle. Mm-hmm. It would have. Talk about divorce paradise. What a wonderful program that is. Helping people get through the splintering relationship. If God can resuscitate a dead man in a red car, he can help you overcome an addiction. We're talking about your treatment to try to help people get through the addictions of life. Some of you are doing stuff that you don't think anybody else knows about. God does. You say, I can't stop that. I can't get out of it. You need a miracle. God's still in the miracle business. See, it would take a miracle for me to get through the financial disaster that I'm going through. Yes? I mean, you can just fill in the blank. In those situations, you say, well, I just don't know if I deserve a miracle. No, you don't. You know, God doesn't discriminate that way. I mean, I didn't have brain damage. I wasn't paranoid, pedal on the steering wheel. But they got a record and they came up on the accident and asked to pray for me, had a medical background. That's what he prayed for in the car. Because he knew that's what we're doing. If I lived, I would have been vegetated, but he knew that. That's what he prayed for in the car. And so all the test results in the original hospital that showed the brain damage and the internal injuries were not revealing the same thing when I got to the hospital that night. So that's a miracle. Yeah. I could fill you in on a whole lot more that we started with walking back in your seat. The main thing to remember is I walked in here and I walked out of here and he said it will never happen. And I had his arm, you know, that was in the back seat of the car. You wouldn't hear it. I was doing the book signing like I would when we finished in here, and this lady came up to me. Very nice, attractive lady. She came up, she was well dressed, she laid the book down. She said, Mr. Piper, would you sign my book? I said, I sure will. I said, would you like a name in here to someone? She said, yes, take it out to myself and my husband. I said, well, your names. I'm writing her and her husband's names in here, and then she dropped the bomb. She said, I haven't seen him in years. I said, I'm making this up to your husband, and you haven't seen him in years? She said, no, he's sitting over there. And I waved at him, he waved back. She said, he called me last night about 10 o'clock. Out of the blue, my ex-husband. And he said, is that dead guy coming to church tomorrow? And I said, you need the guy right down in this is going to be in church tomorrow. He said, can I come to church tomorrow? She said, I've always wanted you to come to church. Ever since we met, yes, of course you can come to church with me. If I come to church, he said, would you let me sit beside you? I've always wanted to sit beside you in church. Of course you would come. He did it. He sat beside me. Would you pray for us? At 2 o'clock this afternoon, we're meeting in the pastor's office. Today, we're going to start over again. I think God's doing some of his best stuff now. You may need a miracle. God is still in the miracle business. I know. I know. I didn't have an easy time with this. If you read 90 Minutes in particular, you know that I'm not heroic in any way. I really struggled with this. I was on my way to church to teach the Bible, and I ended up told these all I was never going to walk again. That I had brain damage, and my wife said things that I do, and what I do sometimes myself, but you can't be put to sleep as many times as I was without some residual effect. I'm telling you, I just didn't feel like I could go on. I mean, 13 months in the hospital bed. I'm on the 24th floor of St. Louis Medical Center in Houston. One morning about 3 a.m., I never went to sleep. You see, they determined that 6 days after the accident, I developed pneumonia, double pneumonia, deadly, fatal pneumonia. My wife called in again, Mrs. Piper, we don't have to tell you this, but we did everything we could to try to save your husband. We saved him. Now he's pneumonia in both lungs, and since he's in traction on all 3 of his limbs and the IVs are all filled with his other arm, we can't elevate him to give him breathing treatments. He's going to die tonight. You might want to call him. Now, there is an upside chance that if we amputate everything, we might be able to set him up and give him breathing treatments. But that's so traumatic, that might be. Now, we've heard about some technology that was just patented 3 weeks ago, Mrs. Piper, and it's in Atlanta right now. It's just flown into the Soviet Union, Siberia. And this doctor, Lizarov, has patented this technique where they put stainless steel halos around your arm or your leg. Wires and rods will go through the flesh and bone and out the other side, and they'll hold his bones in place on the outside simply as if they're still connected on the inside. And then we'll go in and break his leg in a completely different place. and they will turn screws 4 times a day on that device and stretch the bones inside, hoping one day they'll eventually meet again. We've never tried it before. We're not sure what to do. Well, we're willing to try it, if you are. But you need to tell us in 5 minutes so that the plane can take off. She decided it might buy some time, even if it didn't work. So the plane arrived, and after 11 hours of surgery, I woke up with that device on my leg. I would wear it for 11 months. They put one on my arm, too. They can't replace the bone in your leg because it's too big. There's not another bone anywhere that will go there. So they have to break it to stretch it. Here, they actually did do a surgery with replacement bones. They harvested them from my right pelvis. They harvested the bones out of my hip, and they put them in my arm. All the bones in this arm came from my right hip. All the skin of this arm was harvested from my right leg. I'm not going to tell you how they took it off. They took the skin off this leg, and they put it on this arm. Medical people have a wonderful knack for finding things you didn't even hurt. It hurt that for you to fix the other stuff. And so, I walked in here and I walked out, and this is my arm. It was a traumatic experience. It was a painful experience. And each stage of this catastrophe, it looked like it wasn't going to work. And I was on a roller coaster. Some days I feel a little bit better, and the bottom would fall out. I get infections on one of these holes in my leg and be in isolation for 2 or 3 weeks in critical condition, getting massive amounts of antibiotics. And one morning I just had enough. I'm laying there at 3 a.m. and there's no one else around, of course, and I'm shaking my fist at God saying, what on earth is going on here? I was on my way to church to teach the Bible. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I was in the wrong place. I don't understand it. What are you trying to teach me? And for goodness sakes, couldn't you send somebody here that gets it? I mean, everybody's nice to me, but I want to hear from somebody who's experienced it that this works. There wasn't anyone else out there. I was the first. And so I can't even exaggerate the loneliness and isolation that I felt. Even though people were nice, they tried to say encouraging. They knew they were praying for me, but I wanted to talk to somebody who gets it. I wanted them to say, even if it didn't work, it didn't work. There's no one. And God's listening, He always is. That morning I'm listening to some music beside the bed, got nothing else to do there, a captive audience, and God spoke to me through that music. In so many words, here's what He said. This is not about you. It's about me. What I can do through you. So this is all over. And it will be over. See, He didn't promise to send me somebody who understood it. What He promised me to do is to use it. Here's what He said to me. Here's what you need to do, son. You need to take your test and turn it into a testimony. You need to take the mess you're in and turn it into a message that will bless somebody else. This is not about you. This is about all the people who have these devices after this who don't have anybody to talk to. That's what it's about. God can take your disappointment and turn it into divine one. And He was right. I started looking outside of myself. That was having the most profound pity party you could possibly imagine. I decided that morning I didn't knock down, but I haven't been knocked out. Unless I just want to stay defeated by something. And here's what God said. Take this. See, God doesn't matter. It doesn't bother Him if you're mad at Him. He'd rather be mad and ignore Him. So He can handle your anger. Instead of this, He said, son, here's what I want you to do. Take that very same fist that you're shaking at me and do this. Let me help you. I understand how you feel. You can do that. I know some of you have lost loved ones. I've talked to you already. I know some of you are going through a long, dark night. I know some of you haven't gone through it, but you will. And you're trying to worry about how to get out of the worst financial disaster you've ever been. Chris and I were in Joplin, Missouri just a few weeks ago. We're looking at that 9-mile path, 1 mile wide, where 137 people are out. And there's just nothing but pipes sticking out of the ground. Even those are not sticking out of some place. 8-story hospital moved off its foundation. It's just unbelievable. And we're watching the people work and clean up things and feed people and clothe people. And I'm looking at them and I'm thinking, wow, this is a miracle. Yes, it was. And instead of doing this, they were doing this. Let me help you. I was saying, you can do that. May God help you stop shaking your fist at God for something that's befallen you and decide to do that. Let me help you. I've been there. I know what it is. Let me help you. I was speaking at a church north of Houston called Fellowship of the Woodlands. It's a pitiful little church. They have about 25,000 people on the weekends. I'm not sure they're going to make it, but they had 6 services. 6, Pastor, 6 services. And I'm in between them. I'm signing books. I'm at a tall table and a tall stool, and I'm signing books, and they're lined up out of sight. And they're very loud. So I'm trying to sign books, and I can barely hear people telling me what to write. And suddenly, they all got quiet. I mean, just like that, just quiet. So I'm looking around to see what's going on. Apparently, they're looking around me. Something's happening behind me. This is a roll call here. Nobody was supposed to be back there. And I kind of slid around my chair, my stool, just in time to see 17-year-old Travis. Well, he wasn't walking, but he's trying to move in my direction. You see, young Travis, a high school baseball player, is coming in my direction, followed by his parents and his friends and family members, and he's dragging the Ilizarov bone growth device on his left leg. I got off my chair and I moved in his direction. I'm not sure he put his arms around me to hug me or he just fell on top of me. But he's got his arms around me now, this big boy, this big baseball player. He said this into my ear. I read your book and I heard you were going to be here. And I had to come to see you because I got to talk to somebody who understands what this is like. And we did. I spent a whole day in his house about 2 weeks later. Travis has got that device off now, and he's going through therapy and rehab, and I promise you, Travis may never be a high school baseball pitcher again, but I do promise you this. Travis knows how to help other people in ways he never could before. He gets it. Or, see, what I'm praying for and then praying for before I came here tonight is some of you will get off the pity party. You'll turn the page and you begin to let God use you to minister to someone else. And when you do that, you'll know why you went through it. And when you do that, you'll know why it matters. I've been beaten up and I'm not beaten. And neither are you. Unless you rest yourself. When the big truck hit me, I was immediately standing at the gates of heaven. I didn't go that long tunnel with the white light at the end of it. And just as quickly as I took a breath just now, I was standing at the gates of heaven. Last breath here, first breath there. Just like that. I was there. Instant death. Head-on collision. And I'm standing at the gates of heaven. Revelation 21, if you want to read anything about heaven, read Revelation 21. It's just filled with information about heaven. I'm standing at one of the gates. There are 12 of these gates, 3 on each side of the city, and I'm standing at the gate. What an awesome gate it was, but I'm not really taking with the gate. I'm looking at all the people standing around me. I was looking into the face of my grandfather. I'd been with him when he died. I told you about my dad. My dad was career Army, and he was often overseas. But my grandfather, not his father, but my mother's father, my grandfather, I called him Papa. He never left us. He was a carpenter by trade. He was born a few years before the Depression. He never really went to school. They just worked to eat. That family did. Because if they didn't work, they didn't eat. He was illiterate. Couldn't read or write. But he was a carpenter. He could take lumber and nails and do this. I thought then, and I still think to this very night, he's one of the smartest men I ever knew. I adored him. My brothers and I followed him around like puppies when we were little children because we just adored him. He treated us like we were so important. And I know I probably handed him the long nails sometimes when he was doing something, but he never said so. He adored us guy. The night my grandfather died, it broke my heart. I got a phone call from my mother, come quick, Papa's dying. I got there as fast as I could. My dad was doing CPR running. I'm in the ambulance now with Papa. I'm racing to the hospital. I was standing outside the door of the emergency room with the doctor. A friend of my grandfather's walked out with tears in his eyes. He didn't have to say anything, but he did. I'm sorry, son. I did everything I could, but I lost him. I got a lot of broken bones, but nothing hurts like a broken heart. When Papa died, it broke my heart. I love that thought. When I arrived at the gates of heaven, there he was to greet me, and he looked good. That's too was the casket. He did not look good. But in heaven, he was perfect in every way. If you want to look good, heaven is where you want to be. You look nice now, but in heaven you'll be perfect. There are no scars in heaven. There's no blemishes in heaven. There's no age in heaven.